Under an angelic smile, she hides something terrifying. This is Dear X, a Korean mellow thriller about Baek Ah-jin, a woman who learns very early that kindness will not save her. When Ah-jin is still a child, she watches her father, Baek Sung-gyu, kill her mother. Even when her mother begs for help, Ah-jin only looks on coldly. It is not because she was born without feeling. It is because after years of abuse from both parents, something inside her has already broken. Soon after, Sung-gyu attaches himself to a wealthy woman named Hwang Ji-sun. But Ah-jin's new stepmother is not a savior either. Ji-sun wants to sell Ah-jin off for money. The only person in that house who seems innocent is Ji-sun's son, Yoon Jun-so. Ah-jin quickly realizes Jun-so is naive and easy to move. Then she discovers an even bigger secret. Jun-so is not his rich grandfather's biological grandson. He is actually the child of Ji-sun and a driver. Once Ah-jin learns this, she waits until the house is empty and corners Ji-seon with the truth. Ji-seon is terrified. If Jun-seo's grandfather finds out, Ji-seon's life is finished. Ah-jin uses the secret to make Ji-seon buy her clothes and treat her better. That night, Ah-jin begins working on Jun-seo. She tells him his mother is not truly on his side and that Ji-seon must be looking for a way to get rid of both of them. Then Ah-jin provokes Ji-seon on purpose. Ji-seon snaps and drags Ah-jin into the bathroom, shoving her head into the bathtub. Ah-jin has been waiting for this exact moment. She escapes, tells Jun-seo to call the police, and orders him to say a child fell from the second floor. When Ji-seon chases her upstairs, Ah-jin stands by the window. Seon-gyu happens to come home at that moment. Ah-jin says people do not always die when they fall from high places. Her mother did not die that way, and she will not die that easily either. Then she jumps. Jun-so sees everything. Ah-jin survives, and while she is unconscious in the hospital, Jun-so reads her diary. That is where he learns what X means to her. X is the mark she gives to bad adults. From that day on, Jun-so becomes devoted to her. He feels guilty for what his mother did, and that guilt turns into a lifelong need to protect Ah-jin. By high school, Ah-jin's antisocial traits have grown sharper. When a homeroom teacher calls her an orphan, Ah-jin waits until the teacher's birthday and anonymously exposes the teacher's affair. The teacher's husband storms in, humiliates her in public, and the teacher loses her job. Ah-jin appears afterward and calmly tells her it was a birthday gift. One X is gone, but school still has another enemy. Shim Sung-hee is Ah-jin's classmate. Both girls are top students, but Sung-hee comes from a powerful family and cannot stand Ah-jin. When the two are placed together for a debate competition, Sung-hee tries to push Ah-jin off the team. Meanwhile, Ah-jin finds a love letter Sung-hee wrote to Jun-so. Jun-so wants to throw it away, but Ah-jin sees a weapon. The next day, Sung-hee spreads rumors that Ah-jin has no mother. The whole school starts whispering. Then Sung-hee uses her family background to pressure the school and remove Ah-jin from the debate team. That is when Ah-jin fully loses patience. She asks Sung-hee if she likes Yoon Jun-so. Sung-hee freezes. Ah-jin returns the love letter to her, but when Sung-hee opens it, she finds only one cruel message: "Nobody likes you." Then Sung-hee learns the debate organizers have disqualified their school because someone anonymously reported bribery. Sung-hee immediately suspects Ah-jin. After comparing handwriting, she realizes the insulting reply was not written by Jun-so. She finds Ah-jin and throws a bucket of water on her. For Ah-jin, that humiliation becomes a lesson. Enemies should be removed before they can strike again. Jun-so rushes to cover Ah-jin with a blanket and takes her to the nurse's office. On the way, they meet Kim Jae-oh. Jae-oh is another one of Ah-jin's loyal tools. He was once a delinquent who stole a class monitor's earphones. Ah-jin caught him, but instead of exposing him, she used the secret to pull him under her control. Since then, Jae-oh has helped her lend money to classmates and collect high interest. When Jae-oh returns to class, he accidentally drops his phone. Sung-hee picks it up and sees his messages with Ah-jin. At the same time, Ah-jin tells Jun-so that Sung-hee has been bullying her, acting pitiful enough to stir his guilt. After school, Ah-jin Ah-jin learns that a teacher has discovered Jaeho's loan scheme. She goes to find him. Jaeho panics and insists he did not betray her, but Ah-jin simply hugs him. Sung-hee sees the hug, though she cannot record it. From the rooftop, Junso sees it too. At lunch the next day, Sung-hee tries to provoke Ah-jin again. Ah-jin does not explode. She only smiles and walks away. Sung-hee keeps pushing and says she knows the contact called boss in Jaeho's phone must be Ah-jin. Ah-jin looks briefly at Junso and leaves. Sung-hee tries to follow, but Junso calls her to the rooftop. There, he takes her hand and pretends to confess to her. That night, Jaeho buys a new phone and calls Ah-jin. Ah-jin tells him she is being bullied and needs him. Jaeho immediately asks for the plan. The next day, the new homeroom teacher is preparing for her wedding, and the class monitor collects money from the students. Ah-jin congratulates Sung-hee on dating Junso and quietly memorizes the password to Sung-hee's locker. She sends the code to Jaeho and tells him to move during gym class. Junso tells Sung-hee to pretend she is going to the nurse's office, then secretly return to the classroom so they can meet. Sung-hee is thrilled, but when she gets there, she only sees a message on the board telling her to go to the art room. After she leaves, Jaeho slips into the classroom, takes the wedding money, and places it in Sung-hee's locker along with his phone and the class monitor's earphones. When the money disappears, Sung-hee becomes the main suspect because she was the only student who asked to leave. She empties her bag to prove her innocence, but Jaeho says her locker should be checked too. Sung-hee refuses because she knows Jaeho's phone is inside. Jaeho kicks the lock open anyway. Inside are the phone, the stolen money, and the earphones. Sung-hee knows she has been framed, but the evidence is too perfect. Then the video spreads online. Jaeho also leaks that the teacher's affair was with Sung-hee's father. Sung-hee realizes if her father is stained by scandal, her entire family will collapse. Ah-jin delivers the final blow by dropping Sung-hee's private notebook in front of the school bullies. In it, Sung-hee ranked her classmates like social grades, and the bullies were listed at the bottom. After being humiliated and attacked, Sung-hee transfers away. Ah-jin has removed one enemy, but every predator has a predator of her own, and Ah-jin's is her father. When Baek Song-gyu gets out of prison, he immediately looks for her. To keep him away, Junso gives him a large sum of money and tells him not to appear again. But Junso knows a man like Song-gyu will not stop, so he only pays half. The other half will come after Ah-jin graduates. Around this time, So Mi-ri, the head of Longstar Entertainment, notices Ah-jin. Mi-ri thinks Ah-jin is not conventionally flashy, but she has a strange, unforgettable quality. Ah-jin refuses the offer at first. Then Jaeho's life collapses. To protect his younger brother from their violent father, he accidentally kills the man. Because the father was holding a knife, and Jaeho was defending an abused child, Jaeho receives a prison sentence instead of a harsher punishment. Ah-jin later gets into law school, but she cannot afford tuition. Junseo borrows money from his wealthy grandfather and tells Ah-jin it is a scholarship he helped her apply for. Ah-jin sees through the lie, but accepts the money. Seong-gyu, meanwhile, has already gambled away the money Junseo gave him. When Ah-jin brings tuition money home, he is waiting. He steals it and beats her badly. Without the tuition, Ah-jin loses her place at the university. On graduation day, all the other students smile for photos. Ah-jin stands alone with tears in her eyes. Then she sees a man chasing down a thief with impressive skill. His name is Choi Jeong-ho. He owns a cafe and used to be a legendary baseball hitter before an injury ended his career. Ah-jin smiles for the first time in a long while. She applies to work at his cafe. Because of her beauty, many men come just to look at her, including a strange stalker in a hat. Everyone at the cafe knows about him. Most girls would be frightened, but Ah-jin sees opportunity. One night, the stalker follows her, and Ah-jin nearly attacks him back. Junso arrives just in time, and the man escapes. Ah-jin asks Junso how far he would go for her. Junso says he will do anything except kill. That answer disappoints her. When Ah-jin returns home, she finds Song-gyu stealing from her again. He grabs her by the throat and demands twice as much money next month. After he leaves, Ah-jin sits on the floor and laughs at herself. Then Junso comes back. This time, Ah-jin softens, takes his hand, and tells him she does not want to lose him. The next day, Jong-ho notices her injuries. Ah-jin says they are minor. Jong-ho, full of old-school masculine protectiveness, tells her he has never lost a fight and that he treats his employees like family. If anything is wrong, she can use him. Ah-jin stays quiet. She knows a plan cannot be rushed. The next day, she fakes another injury. When Jong-ho notices again, she says the man in the hat has been following her for days. Jong-ho decides to escort her home and gives her a self-defense spray. That is exactly what she wanted, for him to learn where she lives. Outside her door, Ah-jin opens a package while Jong-ho watches. The man in the hat appears in the distance and runs. Jong-ho chases him, but fails to catch him. Worried, he leaves a baseball bat by Ah-jin's door and texts her about it. Once the stage is ready, Ah-jin calls Seong-gyu and tells him to come at 8 that night for money. Then she smashes a mirror and wrecks her apartment. At the cafe, she tells Jong-ho her home looks like a stranger broke in. She expects him to take her back, but he offers his own place instead and says he will stay with his parents. When he calls a taxi, Ah-jin changes the route halfway and texts him that she needs to pick up something from home. Jong-ho worries, but he still does not come. The show has already begun, so Ah-jin gambles with her own life. When Seong-gyu arrives, she gives him a hat as a gift and places it on his head. Then she hands him a bag. He opens it and finds only scrap paper. Furious, he attacks her. As he beats her, Ah-jin secretly calls Jong-ho. Jong-ho realizes something is wrong and rushes over, calling the police on the way. He does not know the exact address, only the route he remembers from before. Ah-jin has to survive long enough for him to arrive. When Seong-gyu begins tiring, Ah-jin sprays him with the self-defense spray, provoking him again. Then she pulls the power cord, throwing the room into darkness. Junso tries calling Ah-jin and gets no answer, so he rushes to her home too. Jong-ho arrives first. He sees a man in a yellow hat beating Ah-jin and believes the stalker is attacking her. He grabs the bat and strikes Seong-gyu. When Seong-gyu falls, Jong-ho realizes he may have gone too far. He wants to call an ambulance, but Ah-jin stops him. She tells him to leave and says she will handle everything. Only then does Jong-ho understand he attacked the wrong man. Panicked and confused, he leaves. After he is gone, Ah-jin picks up a knife. She removes the hat, cuts it apart, and flushes the pieces down the toilet. The next day, Jong-ho is arrested as the main suspect. When Ah-jin wakes in the hospital, she tells the police that Jong-ho killed her father. Jong-ho insists there was a man in a hat and that he attacked because he thought Ah-jin was in danger. But the police find no hat at the scene, and Ah-jin denies seeing one. The case begins to shift. The medical examiner finds Seong-gyu was struck more than once, with time gaps between the blows. Ah-jin also waited until 3 in the morning to call the police, saying she had lost consciousness and woke up later. Detective Park Dae-ho receives a call from Longstar CEO So Mi-ri. Ah-jin remembers Mi-ri once came to the cafe to discuss a contract with Jong-ho. If Jong-ho is tied to a murder case, the agency will not sit still. Ah-jin overhears enough to realize the police may be taking bribes. She records their conversation and later catches evidence of the payoff. That night, Detective Park searches Ah-jin's home and finds fibers from the destroyed hat in the toilet. Ah-jin is arrested. So Mi-ri tells Jong-ho she has handled the lead detective and found new evidence. If Jong-ho cooperates, he can get out. Ah-jin will go to prison instead. Jong-ho feels guilty, but in the end, he chooses himself. During interrogation, Ah-jin asks for a female officer because of her period. On the way to the bathroom, she tells the officer to check the evidence room for photos and audio on her phone. Soon, the detectives handling the case are investigated, but Detective Park has already switched the bribe evidence. Then Junso arrives at the police station and confesses to killing Seong-gyu. He says that night he planned to kill Ah-jin's father himself. He went to Seong-gyu's motel with a drugged drink for the owner, then came to Ah-jin's apartment and found Ah-jin and her father unconscious. Seeing Seong-gyu barely alive, Junso says he hit him with the bat. Ah-jin is released, but the truth is more complicated. When Junso arrived that night, Ah-jin had already killed her father. Junso saw her unconscious and covered in pain. To save her, he cleaned the hat fibers from the toilet, wiped the floor, cleaned the bat, and then struck Seong-gyu again to create his own involvement. Afterward, he planted a trail at the motel to support his story. But the motel owner later calls and says Junso arrived at 1:12 a.m., not when he claimed. Junso realizes his timeline has broken. Just as the police prepare to question Ah-jin again, the case is closed with Jong-ho as the killer. So Mi-ri has used her power. She sends the corrupt detective down, frees Ah-jin, saves Junso, and leaves Jong-ho as the sacrifice. This is what power means. Ah-jin asks what she must do. Miri tells her to stay away from Jun-so. Once Ah-jin enters the entertainment industry, she will become famous and influential. If her relationship with Jun-so is exposed, the murder case and everything behind it could be dug up again. Ah-jin says she was already planning to leave him. Miri receives the case file, and that file becomes the chain she will use to control Ah-jin. Ah-jin cuts ties with Jun-so. Jun-so accuses her of framing a good man. Without her, Choi Jung-ho would not be in prison. Ah-jin tells Jun-so that living the way he does will never get her what she wants. She tells him not to stand in her way. From that moment on, they walk separate paths. With Longstar Entertainment behind her, Baek Ah-jin becomes a rising international star. In prison, Choi Jung-ho watches her on television with bloodshot eyes. The woman he tried to protect has climbed higher, while he pays for a crime that was never truly his. Ah-jin thinks entering show business will be smooth, but someone chooses to make trouble. She is filming with superstar Hyo In-gang, and that makes his former girlfriend, Im Raina, hate her. During filming, Raina deliberately makes things difficult. She complains that Ah-jin's acting is bad, forces repeated takes, and orders Ah-jin's manager, Sok Hyung-i, around like a servant. After being humiliated again and again, Ah-jin says nothing. Raina even threatens to quit, forcing the director to ask Ah-jin to apologize first. So Miri arrives at the set in anger. To keep Rina under control, Miri threatens to expose Rina's drunk driving incident and the person who took the blame for her. Hyung-i tells Ah-jin that Miri keeps black files on every actor under Longstar. Those files can destroy careers and even lives. Ah-jin listens carefully. When Rina later mocks her again, Ah-jin asks what kind of secret Rina has that makes her so afraid. At the elevator, Ah-jin passes a delivery man. He almost follows her, but stops when she gets into a car. That man is Kim Jae-oh, now released from prison. In the car, Ah-jin starts drawing information from Hyung-i. Hyung-i used to be Rina's manager, and she was the person who took the blame in Rina's drunk driving scandal. Ah-jin acts warm and protective, telling Hyung-i to come to her if Rina bullies her. Of course, concern is not Ah-jin's real purpose. Then Ah-jin sees a poster of Jun-so. He is now a popular novelist writing under the pen name Yoon Si-ha. His book is a bestseller, sitting at the top of the charts for weeks. Jae-oh, meanwhile, visits his aunt's home to bring living expenses for his younger brother. His aunt tells him not to come anymore. His brother does not want to see the older brother who killed their father. Jae-oh cannot argue. Even if it happened while protecting his brother, the fact remains. When Jae-oh leaves, he sees his brother coming home from school. He hides instead of saying hello. One day, Jun-seo sees Ah-jin at a cafe during a shoot. Their eyes meet, but neither of them speaks. Rina notices the tension and becomes suspicious. She contacts Jun-seo and invites him to appear on a program with her, hoping to use him against Ah-jin. Rina also brings Ah-jin's former stepmother, Hwang Ji-seon, to the company to attack Ah-jin with cruel words. Ji-seon wants to ruin Ah-jin, so Jun-seo will finally give up on her. Later, Rina and Jun-seo film a program together. Jun-so's novel, The Accomplice, is clearly inspired by Ah-jin. After the program, Reina tries to get Jun-so to drive her home. At the same time, Ah-jin goes to Longstar alone to steal her black file. She remembers Hyung-i saying the elevator stops after 6, so she takes the stairs. But Reina knows the elevator still works in emergencies and reaches the safe first. When Ah-jin opens the safe, Reina appears with the file in her hand. Reina thinks she has won. She tells Ah-jin to kneel and beg. Ah-jin calmly says no wonder Hyo In-gang could not stand Reina. Reina slaps her. Jun-so sees it and gets out of the car. Reina stops for the moment, but Jun-so knows Ah-jin well enough to recognize what is coming. A few days later, at Longstar's 7th anniversary celebration, the video of Reina slapping Ah-jin suddenly plays in front of everyone. So Miri rushes on stage and claims the two women were only acting, but the damage is done. The truth is that Ah-jin already knew Hyung-i was Reina's person. She also knew the rumor about black files in the safe was bait. Ah-jin let Rina think she had the advantage, then turned the trap around. Ah-jin warns Rina not to touch her again. When Ah-jin leaves the hall, a server stops her. The server is Detective Park, the former corrupt officer from the murder case. Rina sees the two of them talking and takes a photo. She sends it to her assistant and orders him to find out who the woman is. Jun-seo sees that too. When Junseo returns home, Ah-jin is already waiting. Before he can move, she hugs him and asks him to help her date Hyo In-gang. The next day, Ji-seon comes to Junseo's home and sees Ah-jin opening the door. Ji-seon tries to attack her, but Ah-jin is no longer a child. She stops Ji-seon easily. Junseo returns in time to pull his mother away. After filming, Hyo In-gang asks to meet Ah-jin privately. He tells her a story from when he was an idol. Another member, Ji-hyuk, was more popular than he was. One day, Ji-hyuk ate dessert from a fan and got sick, allowing In-gang to take his place as lead singer and become famous. But In-gang knew from the beginning that the dessert contained nuts Ji-hyuk was allergic to. He did not warn him. Years later, Ji-hyuk still sends In-gang messages of support whenever he sees him on TV. In-gang tells Ah-jin he understood what she did at the anniversary event. He recognizes her because she reminds him of his younger self. He admires how far she is willing to go, but he also warns her to stop before she ends up regretting it like he does. Soon, Ah-jin receives a threatening call. The caller tells her to come to a bar or he will expose her father's murder. At the bar, she does not notice In-gang nearby. She enters the private room and finds a group of men. Detective Park calls again and tells her the man in blue once lost his career after a bullying accusation early in his debut. With no skills and no place to go, he ended up in clubs and drugs before Park arrested him. Park says Ah-jin is next. When Ah-jin leaves the room, In-gang is waiting. He assumes anyone entering a VIP room is involved in dirty business, and whatever respect he briefly felt for Ah-jin disappears. Ah-jin says she did not want to go. Someone threatened her. In-gang asks who it was, but he already knows she will not answer, so he tells her to get out of the car. Jo has now taken work at a private investigation office to earn more money. On his first day, his boss tells him to investigate Detective Park. Jo switches Park's phone in a restaurant and installs spyware. When Park notices something strange, Jo plays it off as a mistake. Then Jo hears Park talking to a reporter and mentioning Ah-jin's name. Once he learns Ah-jin may be tied to a murder case, he contacts Junso. Junso listens to the recording and says Ah-jin is not the killer Park claims. Park tried to frame her once and was punished by internal affairs. Since then, Park has held a grudge. That night, Ah-jin, Junso, and Jo reunite for the first time in years. Jo is so overwhelmed that he immediately hugs Ah-jin. Ah-jin used him in the past, but she also truly helped him. Before she leaves, Jo gives her a new phone and tells her to call whenever she needs him. With Jo's investigation, Ah-jin learns everything about In-gang. He suffers from depression and panic disorder because of overwork. His father died in a car crash when he was 8. 1 year later, on the anniversary of his father's death, his mother died by suicide. In-gang and his brother were raised by their grandmother, Hong Kyung-suk, who became his emotional anchor. Jo steals the grandmother's diary for Ah-jin. After reading it, Ah-jin begins her plan. She starts appearing at the temple where the grandmother goes, leaving a gentle impression. Then she helps Hyung-yi find a place to live in the grandmother's neighborhood, giving Ah-jin a reason to visit. Ah-jin brings rice cakes to the grandmother's door as a new neighbor. The grandmother recognizes her from the temple and invites her in for dinner. She also calls In-gang. At the table, Ah-jin begins crying over the food. In-gang arrives and sees it. He pulls Ah-jin outside and demands to know what she is planning. Ah-jin says she met the grandmother by chance, but In-gang does not believe her. Ah-jin does not retreat. She knows his weakness, so she speaks directly to his loneliness. She asks if he knows what people say about him, that he looks like he is about to die, that he is lonely and tense, and that nobody is willing to tell him the truth. Then she confesses that she likes him and calls him a coward. After going home, Ah-jin tells Junso the truth. She only wants to date In-gang because he is a stepping stone to the top. She meant only to meet the grandmother, but In-gang's appearance made her improvise. Now she wonders whether her words hurt him or moved him. In-gang sits alone in his car, crying. Ah-jin sees the footage through surveillance and smiles. Her words reached him. Later, Ji-hyuk visits In-gang and tells him the truth. He knew the dessert contained nuts, but he had grown tired of idle life. He ate it on purpose so he could leave. He says he is getting married and hopes In-gang finds peace too. In-gang beats him in anger. Ji-hyuk then admits Ah-jin asked him to come. Meanwhile, Detective Park tries to take a file to reporter Im Hee-guk, but Jo blocks him. Jo has leverage too, evidence involving Park's daughter overseas. Park backs down and texts the reporter that the murder claims about Ah-jin are false. Reporter Im then meets Rina. They are cousins, and Rina is the one who arranged the investigation into Ah-jin. Jae-oh learns about Ah-jin's plan to date In-gang and complains to Junso. Junso says nothing, but it hurts him. The grandmother later visits Ah-jin and apologizes for In-gang's behavior. When she asks why Ah-jin cried at dinner, Ah-jin says the cabbage reminded her of her late mother. The grandmother is shaken because her own dead daughter also loved cabbage. Junso watches footage of Ah-jin and In-gang looking close. He tells himself it will only last a year and forces himself to endure it. In-gang messages Ah-jin to apologize and invites her to dinner. Ah-jin is delighted because the prey has taken the bait. Before the date, Ah-jin calls Jae-oh over. He is dressed formally because it is his younger brother's graduation day, but his brother still refuses to see him. Ah-jin tells him that if he were her brother, she would keep him by her side. At dinner, In-gang is late. Ah-jin waits until the restaurant closes, then walks outside calmly, like a lover waiting for her partner. When In-gang arrives in a rush, she does not blame him. Instead, she worries about him. His guilt lowers his defenses completely. In-gang falls into her trap. At the same time, Junso spirals. When he sees someone defacing Ah-jin's advertisement, he gets into a fight. Rena, who has started to see through Junso's feelings, runs over to help him. Some people call Ah-jin a born villain, a monster, even a psychopath. But to Ah-jin, evil is simply the fastest tool for survival. She is not cruel only because she enjoys cruelty. If kindness, weakness, and tears are useful, she can perform those too. Every mask exists for the same reason, to save herself. Jae-oh films Ah-jin and In-gang secretly from a distance. He feels conflicted. Then reporter Im photographs the two of them embracing and calls Rena. Junso answers Rena's phone instead. After hanging up, he fastens Rena's seatbelt and sends her home. Even though Junso is hurt, he still texts Ah-jin to warn her. The next day, reporter Im sends intimate photos of Ah-jin and In-gang to So Miri. To protect her moneymaker, Miri says she will handle it and orders Ah-jin to break up with In-gang. Ah-jin says they are truly in love. She also realizes the reporter contacted the agency before publishing because he wants something. She decides to buy him instead. That night, Ah-jin meets reporter Im and offers an irresistible deal. If he cooperates, he will get exclusive access to her love story with In-gang. He will gain fame and money. As proof of sincerity, she hands him a USB containing photos. She promises that her romance will become too fascinating for the public to ignore. Soon, the news of Ah-jin and In-gang's relationship explodes. Fans are divided. Some support them, others rage against them. Ah-jin does not care. Now she must remove the bombs around her. When Hyung-yi goes on a date, Ah-jin tells her not to speak carelessly. But the date is another setup. Jae-oh uses his charm to get Hyung-yi drunk and gently guides her into revealing Rina's drunk driving secret. Jae-oh records everything. Rina receives the video. Then Ah-jin appears behind her. Rina begs her not to release it. Her life will be over. Ah-jin tells Rina this is only the beginning. Rina's phone is flooded with messages, and Ah-jin coldly says this is the price of touching her. Rina should not expect to survive in the industry. After taking down Rina, Ah-jin fires Hyung-yi for not knowing how to keep her mouth shut. In the days that follow, Ah-jin and In-gang's relationship grows warmer. She becomes part of his family life, and In-gang even speaks publicly in a live stream about loving her and hoping fans will love his Ah-jin too. He has no idea he is only a ladder. Junseo watches the clips in pain. To keep Rina from acting against Ah-jin, he starts dating her. Jae-oh visits Junseo often. He is lonely because Ah-jin has not contacted him in a long time, but he comforts himself by saying that if she does not need him, it means she is doing well. Then Junseo's wealthy grandfather becomes critically ill. Junseo tells the housekeeper not to allow his mother near the old man. Ji Seon, desperate because Junseo will not answer her calls or send money, breaks into his apartment looking for cash. Instead, she finds documents showing Junseo invested in Ah-jin's agency. Furious, she goes to confront Ah-jin. Ah-jin is not afraid. She still knows Junseo's birth secret. Around this time, Shim Sung-hee sees Ah-jin working an event. Sung-hee is now a store clerk and old resentment floods back. She posts online as a former classmate, accusing Ah-jin of loan sharking, framing her for theft, and forcing her to transfer schools. The story spreads quickly. Jo fights back online, and soon other classmates expose Sung-hee's own past cruelty. Frightened, Sung-hee deletes the post. So-miri warns Ah-jin to be careful. One small crack can pull her down from the top. Then Ah-jin catches a cold and develops a fever. While she sleeps, memories of her mother and childhood torment her. In-gang, filming out of town, worries that she cannot take care of herself and sends his grandmother to check on her. The grandmother cooks porridge and feeds Ah-jin by hand. Her tenderness touches something Ah-jin has almost never felt. Ah-jin originally approached this family only to use In-gang, but now a strange feeling begins to grow. The grandmother tells Ah-jin that no matter what happens, she will stand by her side. By morning, Ah-jin feels better. Before the grandmother leaves, Ah-jin gives her the door code and says she can come over anytime. That decision becomes one of Ah-jin's mistakes. In-gang begins thinking about marriage. So-miri warns him to be careful. She knows Ah-jin's past and how merciless she can be. But In-gang is in love, and people in love rarely listen. One day, Ah-jin goes to the temple with In-gang's grandmother and sees a man who makes her blood run cold. Choi Jung-ho has been released from prison. The grandmother interrupts before anything happens, and strangely, she knows Jung-ho. Ah-jin keeps her expression under control, but she understands why he has appeared. He must be here for revenge. That night, Jo visits Jun-so's place and argues with Rina, who mistakes him for someone else. After he leaves, Ah-jin calls him. She tells him to follow Jung-ho and report every move. Jun-so returns and reads Jo's face. He knows Ah-jin called, but Jo says nothing because Ah-jin told him not to tell Jun-so. The next day, Jun-so and Rina's relationship is exposed. Rina smiles because this is only the beginning of her counterattack. The one-year promise Ah-jin made to Jun-so has already passed, but Ah-jin has not broken up with In-gang and now avoids Jun-so. Jun-so uses his identity as an investor to pressure So-miri. He keeps targeting In-gang. Miri refuses to let In-gang be hurt and tells him the investor wants to adapt Jun-so's novel into a drama, with Ah-jin as the female lead. In-gang wants to refuse for Ah-jin, but Miri says the investor made this a condition. In-gang has no choice but to tell Ah-jin. Ah-jin goes to Jun-so alone and asks if he used money to pressure Miri, provoke In-gang, and force her to come. Jun-so asks when she will break up with In-gang. Just as he moves closer, Rina sees them. Rina tries to question them, but Ah-jin ignores her and leaves. Soon it is Ah-jin's birthday. In-gang plans to propose, but Rina and Jun-so interrupt their dinner. Rina deliberately mentions Jun-so and Ah-jin's relationship in front of In-gang. Ah-jin calmly admits their families were once combined, making Jun-so her former stepbrother. She says she did not tell In-gang because she did not want to remember that painful past. Reina asks why Ah-jin went to Jun-so's house late at night. In-gang becomes jealous, but Ah-jin soothes him with gentle words. Then In-gang receives a call from his grandmother. Ah-jin learns the grandmother went to her apartment to make her a birthday meal, cut her hand, and looked for a bandage. While searching, she found the diary Ah-jin had stolen a year earlier. Ah-jin realizes the danger immediately. She jumps on Jo's motorcycle and rushes to the grandmother's house. Jo waits downstairs while she goes in. When Ah-jin arrives, the diary is on the table. Jun-so gets there soon after. Then they hear someone falling upstairs. They run up and find the grandmother lying motionless at the bottom of the stairs. Above her stands Ah-jin, expressionless. The grandmother is taken to the hospital, and Ah-jin sits outside, praying silently. Whether she wants the grandmother saved or dead, even Ah-jin may not know. The grandmother dies. In-gang rushes back and breaks down. Ah-jin plays the role of the good girlfriend, holding him in grief. The police question Ah-jin. She says In-gang had told her the grandmother was sleeping badly, so she went over to keep her company. But when they met, the grandmother accused her of lying. According to Ah-jin, the grandmother stood up to feed the stray cat, suddenly became dizzy, and fell down the stairs. Ah-jin tried to help, but it was too late. Jung-ho appears at the hospital. In-gang's brother, Hyo-in-mo, follows him and asks about Ah-jin's father. In-mo suspects the grandmother's death may be connected to Ah-jin. Jung-ho tells him Ah-jin had nothing to do with Song-gyu's death. Ah-jin secretly hears the conversation. After Inmo leaves, she asks Jung-ho why he helped her when this was his best chance for revenge. Jung-ho says that during his first year in prison, he only thought about revenge. In the second year, he wondered why he was so unlucky. In the third, he began asking what could have made Ah-jin do such things. By the fourth year, he no longer hated her. He even felt sympathy. If Ah-jin had at least one decent adult in her life, maybe her road would have been different. In his final year in prison, Jung-ho started praying for her. He even wondered whether he could become that adult for her. Ah-jin tells him he missed his only chance to take revenge. Reporter Im contacts Sung-hee to dig up more dirt on Ah-jin, but Sung-hee refuses to talk. Jo has already threatened her with her own past. After the funeral, Ah-jin uses her position as In-gang's girlfriend to meet director Sol Young-wook. He is invited to the Cannes Film Festival, which means a possible doorway to the international market. Ah-jin sees her next step. When Ah-jin returns home, Junso confronts her. He asks if she killed the grandmother. Ah-jin says yes. She says the grandmother had no more value and discovered Ah-jin had approached her on purpose, so she removed the obstacle. Junso is devastated, but that is not the truth. The next day, In-gang visits the grandmother's home and hears from a neighbor that Ah-jin and the grandmother argued that night. The neighbor also has security footage, but says the police already took it. In-gang does not know the police were really Jo in disguise. Because of the grandmother's death, In-gang decides to quit the entertainment industry and marry Ah-jin. When paparazzi photograph him buying a ring, the news explodes. Director Sol drops the plan to work with Ah-jin, fearing the rumors will affect the film. Ah-jin realizes In-gang no longer has value as a stepping stone. She meets him and breaks up with him. In-gang cannot accept it, so Ah-jin tells him the cruelest truth she can. She admits she stole the grandmother's diary to get close to him. She says she only dated him for that reason, and hints that the grandmother died because she learned the truth. In-gang is destroyed. Ah-jin leaves and contacts reporter Im, telling him to release the breakup news. Then Jo calls and warns her that someone is following her. He tells her to leave first while he blocks them. When Jo stops the men, he is surrounded and badly beaten. After they leave, Ah-jin calls. Jo hides what happened and says they were just paparazzi. The next day, the breakup news spreads. So Miri worries about In-gang and goes to his home, only to find he has attempted suicide. Junso visits Jo in the hospital. Even covered in injuries, Jo still worries about Ah-jin. He noticed a cross tattoo on one attacker's wrist, but he does not know the same man is watching him from outside the room. Then news of In-gang's death spreads through the hospital. Junso finds Ah-jin and asks why she keeps hurting people. He tries to reach whatever humanity remains in her, but Ah-jin says Junso is the one who made her this way. If he wants to leave, he can. He can blame her as much as he wants. She will never blame him. Late that night, Ah-jin goes to In-gang's bathroom and sits by the tub, crying silently. After In-gang's death becomes public, his fans turn on Ah-jin. Someone throws eggs at her, and unexpectedly, Sung-hee helps her escape. At In-gang's funeral, So Miri cries. In-gang had been with her from his debut, and after becoming a star, he stayed loyal to the person who helped him. Miri saw him almost like a younger brother. Now that he is dead because of Ah-jin, Miri turns against her. She gives Ah-jin's black files to reporter Im. At the same time, Ji-sun comes to Ah-jin and kneels. Because of Junso, she asks Ah-jin for forgiveness, but the wounds from childhood are still fresh. Ah-jin cannot accept it. Ji-sun tells Ah-jin to make sure Junso knows she apologized. Ah-jin snaps. She throws books, laughs uncontrollably, and asks if Ji-sun knows when she hated her most. Then the real memory of the grandmother's death is revealed. That night, after the grandmother scolded Ah-jin, Ah-jin cried and confessed that she did have an ulterior motive at first. But after spending time with In-gang and his grandmother, she began to genuinely like him. The grandmother softened. That is what Ah-jin hates most about Ji-sun too. Ji-sun was cruel, but sometimes she was kind. That kindness made Ah-jin waver. It gave her false hope. And in hell, hope is the most dangerous thing. Junso finally watches the hidden footage from that night. Ah-jin told the police the truth. After forgiving her, the grandmother took her upstairs to see the stray cat she cared for. Suddenly, the grandmother became dizzy. Ah-jin tried to catch her, but could not reach her in time. The grandmother fell by accident. At the hospital, Ah-jin truly prayed for her to wake up. Junso realizes he misjudged her, and the relief on his face days is almost as frightening as Ah-jin's darkness. But a new danger has already entered Ah-jin's life. A chaebol heir named Moon Do-hyuk became obsessed with her after seeing her nearly get hit by a car on the day of the grandmother's accident. The men who beat Jo were his people. After In-gang's death, So Miri expels Ah-jin from the company. Other agencies show interest, but Miri warns them that a major scandal is about to break. Ah-jin confronts Miri, asking if all this is for In-gang. Miri says that if Ah-jin had never met In-gang, he might still be alive. Ah-jin pushes back, saying Miri knew the relationship could hurt him, but allowed it for profit. Miri's greed created this too. Miri vows to crush Ah-jin and send her back to the gutter she crawled out of. Ah-jin leaves in rage, flooring the gas pedal as she tries to think of a way out. Junso also confronts Miri and says he will pull his investment if she keeps attacking Ah-jin. Miri tells him Ah-jin has lost all humanity. If Junso keeps trying to save her, Ah-jin will drag everyone around her into hell. Then Ji-sun calls Ah-jin again. She is sick and needs a kidney transplant. She has no money, no donor, and growing debt. Junso tells Ah-jin not to answer his mother's calls anymore, but Ah-jin says if she ignores Ji-sun, nobody knows what desperate thing Ji-sun might do. Back home, Jo says the priority is getting Ah-jin's black file. Ah-jin says that file no longer matters. The next day, Junso visits his mother and agrees to donate a kidney. He will also pay her debts and surgery fees, but with two conditions. She must never appear before Ah-jin again, and she must never bother his grandfather. Soon after, So Miri is arrested for embezzling billions from the company. The investigation also reveals that she abused and threatened actors with black files, bribed broadcasters and reporters, and controlled careers through fear. Ah-jin smiles as she watches the news. Reina, meanwhile, has truly fallen for Junso. When she learns he is donating a kidney to his mother, she breaks down. She has been waiting for him to turn back toward her, but he has never truly seen her. Before surgery, Junso calls Ah-jin and tells her not to worry. After he recovers, he will come find her. Then Ah-jin receives an offer from DL Entertainment. They do not care about her bad press. They see her future value and believe they can easily reshape her image. Sung-hee has also attached herself to Ah-jin like a parasite. She treats Ah-jin's home like her own and enjoys watching Ah-jin's scandals. One day, she tries to sell a luxury bag from Ah-jin's closet, but the police catch her. Ah-jin refuses to press charges, so Sung-hee is released. Back at Ah-jin's home, Sung-hee shamelessly says she only wanted to help because Ah-jin has no work. She even suggests splitting the money from selling Ah-jin's things. Late that night, Sung-hee goes to Ah-jin's room and demands an apology. If not for Ah-jin, she would not have dropped out and her family would not have collapsed. Ah-jin says only people who did something wrong apologize. The next day, Junso asks Ah-jin if she knew his birth secret all along. Ah-jin admits it. She says he should thank her. If she had exposed it, he could not have inherited anything and he might have broken down. But before she said anything, did he really not know his biological father was someone else? After that, Ah-jin enters Moon Do-hyuk's world as his future wife. Jo watches the news of her marriage as if losing the last thing holding him together. His boss tells him to let go. Moon Do-hyuk's power is too great. They cannot beat him. Rina prepares to leave Korea, possibly forever. Before going, she tells Junso to stay away from Ah-jin and live his own life. At Do-hyuk's mansion, Ah-jin notices a locked iron gate leading to the third floor. The housekeeper says it is Do-hyuk's private space and no one can enter without permission. Ah-jin pretends to give up, but she is already curious. At dinner, she asks to use the third floor study for quiet script practice. Do-hyuk sees through her immediately. Then he asks if she has ever killed someone or ever wanted to. To keep her obedient, Do-hyuk tells her about his ex-wife. He says he gave that woman everything and treated her like treasure, but whenever her life went wrong, she blamed him. She said he made her that way. Eventually, she broke down and was sent to a psychiatric hospital. That night, Ah-jin finds sanitary supplies in the bathroom and does not know who put them there. She wants to ask, but Do-hyuk's expression stops her. Then she notices a clock stopped at 9:12, the time connected to her father's father's death. The memory attacks her. Fear swallows her, and her hands shake uncontrollably. Elsewhere, the two people abandoned by Ah-jin meet again, Junso and Jae-oh. Junso asks why Jae-oh would sacrifice his whole life for one person. Jae-oh says his life never had much value. He is a delinquent who killed his father, a person even his family does not want. If someone like him stakes his whole life on another person, who can really criticize him? Junso tells him to live for himself from now on. Otherwise, Jae-oh will end up lost like him. With Do-hyuk's help, Ah-jin's career begins rising again. Jae-oh sees her success and feels relieved, but when he prepares to leave, Ah-jin appears. Jae-oh notices she looks pale and asks what happened. Ah-jin asks him to investigate Do-hyuk, especially his ex-wife and where she is now. Neither of them knows Do-hyuk has planted a listening device in the car. Hearing their conversation, he smiles. Every night, the housekeeper brings Ah-jin hot tea on Do-hyuk's orders. He says it is for her health and insists she drink 1 cup a day. After the housekeeper leaves, Ah-jin pours the tea away. She suspects something is wrong. When Do-hyuk returns, he finds Ah-jin asleep on the sofa with a wine glass in her hand. He touches her face, notices something strange, and then begins laughing to himself. Soon, Sung-hee sneaks into the mansion disguised as a maid. Ah-jin is sunbathing alone. Sung-hee approaches from behind with a fruit knife hidden in her sleeve, but Ah-jin notices in time. Sung-hee loses control. She cannot understand why a monster like Ah-jin gets to live in luxury. Ah-jin laughs at her and says Sung-hee failed because she was stupid. That insult cuts too deep. Sung-hee tries to destroy Ah-jin's beautiful face, but Ah-jin wounds her first. Afterward, Ah-jin rests in bed and sees Jun-seo appear beside her, comforting her. But Sung-hee is sent to a psychiatric hospital under the claim that she is mentally unstable. Jae-oh investigates and discovers the hospital was bought by Moon Do-hyuk years earlier. Do-hyuk's ex-wife was also treated there, but after being admitted, she seems to have vanished. In other words, people sent to Do-hyuk's hospital disappear from the world. Meanwhile, Jun-seo and his mother are shopping when a man claiming to be a producer approaches him. Rumors about Ah-jin are spreading, and the producer has noticed that many of them match the plot of Jun-seo's novel. He asks whether Jun-seo's story is based on reality. Jun-seo says it is fiction and tells him not to waste his time. Only after that conversation does Jun-seo learn Ah-jin was nearly attacked. He calls Jae-oh, who scolds him for finding out so late. After Sung-hee's attack, Ah-jin begins hallucinating. She hears servants whispering about her. She sees people approaching with knives. Sometimes, after taking only 1 sip of the tea, she suddenly finds herself in another room with missing memories. Her memory breaks into fragments. The kitchen is destroyed, but she does not remember doing it. A locked room is open, and the housekeeper tells her she opened it herself. Do-hyuk has been drugging her tea to control her, the same way he once controlled his ex-wife. The next day, Jae-oh appears in front of Ah-jin. He says she called him and said Do-hyuk had done something to her. She said her memory was falling apart and suspected Do-hyuk was behind it. She also said Sung-hee met Do-hyuk before the attack and received a large amount of money. Ah-jin remembers none of it. Her mental state collapses. She even attacks her reflection in the mirror. Do-hyuk watches from behind. He says he can forgive the destroyed study, but this time Ah-jin hurt herself, so he needs an explanation. Jae-oh meets Junso and explains Ah-jin's condition. He believes Do-hyuk is manipulating everything, but there is no proof that he is insane. Do-hyuk's cruelty goes even further. He forces a director to rewrite a scene so Ah-jin must act out a murder almost identical to the night her father died. Every time she raises her hand, memories of Sun-gyu's death flash through her mind. She tries to control herself, but finally loses it and injures the other actor. Afterward, she confronts the director and learns Do-hyuk threatened to withdraw funding unless the script was changed. Ah-jin goes straight to Do-hyuk. This time, he stops pretending. He admits he did it because Ah-jin would not obey him. He wants total control. If he had not cornered her, she would never have come to him. All the rumors spreading about her were also his work. He wants to drive her step by step into a place with no escape. Ah-jin realizes something else. On the night after Sung-hee's attack, the person beside her was not Jun-seo. It was Do-hyuk. She hallucinated and mistook him for Jun-seo. Do-hyuk even called Jun-seo afterward and asked him to come take care of her. Not long after, Jun-seo finds Ah-jin near the pool, almost broken. Ah-jin trembles as she calls Jae-oh. Compared with Jun-seo, Jae-oh never asks anything from her in return. She cannot understand why he cares so much. To Jo, Ah-jin is everything. Every time he helps her, he feels like his life has value. The next day, Ah-jin seems to pretend she has lost her memory of what Do-hyuk admitted. Do-hyuk cannot tell whether she is acting. At the same time, Jo blocks Do-hyuk's men on his motorcycle and threatens them. He says he will make them suffer until the day they die. The men report it to Do-hyuk. In front of Ah-jin, Do-hyuk orders them to get rid of Jo. Ah-jin shows no reaction. Jo decides to sacrifice himself to bring Do-hyuk down. Before carrying out the plan, he sees his younger brother one last time, but still hides so his brother will not notice him. That night, Jo asks his boss to install hidden cameras on the rooftop. Then he waits in the office for Do-hyuk's men. When they burst in, Jo rides his motorcycle toward the roof. The men chase him, trap him, and throw him from the building. Minutes later, Junseo receives the hidden video Jo recorded. Jo's body is placed into an oil drum so it can be disposed of. At dawn, Ah-jin calls Jo, but no one answers. Junseo goes to Jo's company and gets the video from Jo's friend. Ah-jin also uses the same video to confront Do-hyuk. Combined with the recording she made at breakfast when he ordered Jo's death, she now has evidence against him. For a moment, Ah-jin has flipped the board again. Then Junseo calls and asks why she caused Jo's death. Ah-jin only says it was what Jo wanted. That answer finally breaks something in Junseo. He calls the documentary producer. 1 month later, Baek Ah-jin attends the Blue Dragon Awards. She is one of the strongest candidates for Best Actress. But as the ceremony begins, a documentary about her starts airing on television. The first interview is with Shim Sung-hee from the psychiatric hospital. Sung-hee calls Baek Ah-jin a demon wearing human skin. Ah-jin wins Best Actress and smiles on stage while accepting the award. Then the documentary moves to the second interview, Hyo In-mo, In-gang's brother. He says Ah-jin smiled at the grandmother's funeral. The final section revisits Baek Sung-yu's murder case. Every detail points toward Ah-jin as the person with the strongest motive. Ah-jin sees the strange looks from the audience. When she reaches backstage, she watches the documentary and sees Junseo explaining the details of her father's death. Still wearing her gown, Ah-jin runs out of the venue. Soon, Junseo stops his car in front of her. Ah-jin thought that after defeating Do-hyuk, nothing would ever bind her again. But the final chain around her is Junseo. Junseo asks one last time if she will stop. Ah-jin gives him no answer, so Junseo drives the car off a cliff. He dies at the scene. Ah-jin disappears. In the letter Junseo leaves for his mother, he writes about his resentment. He does not even leave her a single photo. Do-hyuk sees news footage showing that Ah-jin and Junseo were in the same car during the crash. He prepares a funeral for his wife, but no one knows the truth. Ah-jin did not die. After the car went over the cliff, she cut her seatbelt with a knife and crawled out. When she reaches the top, she looks back at the road she climbed from hell and smiles again. Baek Ah-jin is made of blood, wounds, cruelty, and strange fragments of warmth. She is a woman you can hate, fear, pity, and still feel drawn to. And that is where the story ends. That's all for today's drama recap. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like, comment, and share. I'll see you in the next one.